Game 4 between the Montreal Canadiens and Toronto Maple Leafs takes place tonight from the Bell Center. Our playoff coverage brought to you by BitBuy, Canada's #1 cryptocurrency platform. That's Shane Kelly, Aaron Ward. I'm David Pagnotta. And Wardo, the Leafs come out in Game 3 a lot tighter in that game. It's 2-1 series for the Leafs. Going into Game 4 tonight, is this pretty much a must-win for the Canadiens?
Oh, it absolutely is, and I think it's a tall order, right? So Ducharme has to look at his lineup and say, he may be without Evans, he may be without Lehkonen, he may be without Stahl. And the problem they have is when they're playing an effective game against Toronto is keeping the score close and waiting for those opportunities, those chances. Problem is they're very few and far between. They're not happening very often for the guys that are getting them. And so now, who up front's going to do it? And you've got to get guys to step up. You've got to get more from Gallagher. You've got to get a bunch from those guys that are in the front end who are being expected in their zone to play a really disciplined style of game, right? You're trying to keep it close. So Carey Price has to be Carey Price tonight. The D have to maintain the level of patience that they've had playing against these Toronto forwards. The forwards got to come with something. But from Toronto's perspective, I mean, honestly, Campbell's been great. You can't criticize the guy. He's done everything that's expected, and I think he's taken the question of Anderson out. I think overall as a team, they played a very calculated, patient, smart style of game. And they played their game. I think if anything, if Toronto wants an improvement in a certain area, it's looking forward to the next round. If they make it there and say, hey, listen, Marner's really effectively done not a whole heck of a lot. He needs to get his game up to a snuff, be more involved, contribute more offensively, and that would be maybe where that improvement comes from, finding his confidence.
Yeah, that's scary for the Jets, who they'll face in the second round if they can close out the Canadiens, because they're doing all of this without one of their best offensive players in Tavares, and with another not doing all that much, as you're saying, in Marner. But I think the problem for the Canadiens is that was pretty much the perfect game from them. They did exactly what they've been doing all year, which is throw a ton of pucks at the net. They, way outshot the Leafs. They had way more shot attempts. They controlled the puck more. But their expected goals numbers, again, they're not very good because all these shots are coming from the outside. There's no screens. They're trying to get these rebounds or deflections, things like that. But when you're relying on winning all these games 2-1, 1-0, your margin of error is so small. As we saw last night, if Campbell plays as well as Price, they just don't have much of a shot.
It's been interesting too with the fan base there in Montreal, kind of screaming for certain guys to come in, come out. I mean, so Caulfield got in and he played effective, but again, there wasn't much of a body of work for anybody in the Montreal team. Everybody's looking at Merrill and Kulak, but I got to tell you, what those guys are doing effectively is limiting the chances, even though Montreal's giving up a ton of chances, right? So Carey Price has been good. To think about the idea they want to put in a guy in Romanov, who everybody says, oh, well, he's got great skills, great hands, he's going to move the puck. Here's the thing. He's a positional disaster out there on the ice, especially in the last 4 weeks of the season. So I think your cost of putting him in outweighs the benefit he might bring to this team. So I think Ducharme would take a pretty ballsy decision for him to put this guy in at this stage of the series.
The Canadiens it looked like anyway in the third period, they started to fly a little bit more. They were creating more opportunities and more chances. And I think that's one of the reasons why people are crying for more ice time for a guy like Cole Caulfield. But Shane, is that warranted? Can we see the Canadiens give more ice time to this type of a player and whoever his line's with at the risk of substituting that for the defensive aspect of the game?
I think you have to at this point. I mean, they're down 2-1 playing this buttoned up tight style at the back end, and they're not winning the game. So, you have to score more goals to beat this Maple Leafs team than what they're doing. Caulfield is maybe the only guy in the lineup capable of doing that at this point. I mean, Josh Anderson had one in the first game that was a nice goal, but he hasn't done much else. So, he is the only player in this lineup, I think, who's capable of creating his own offense off the rush because of his shot. And to me, if they want any chance, you have to gamble at this point with whatever you can to do things offensively.
Yeah, I think systematically Montreal did something in game one. There was a transition north and south that got Toronto on their heels, and either Montreal stepped away from it or Toronto somehow effectively found a way to shut it down. But Montreal's got to find a way to recapture that transition game that forced Toronto to have gaps. Like, not all five guys are up in the zone. There was some area to work with the puck at times.
Well, we certainly know Carey Price wouldn't mind a few more goals in front of him. That would certainly help him and the rest of this team. We'll see how that goes later tonight as Game 4 gets underway. Are the Habs going to be down 2 more games, or are they going to creep back into this one and tie this series up? We'll find out shortly. Thanks for watching.